Good evening. Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. It's Jeremy Werner, Derek Piper, and we are shipping up to Boston, Derek, as Illinois crushes Duquesne. No sweat. Illinois is sweet again as they beat Duquesne 89-63. Terrence Shannon continues his tear with 30 points for a third time in 4 games. He's got 158 points in 5 postseason games. Just epic stuff, as Brad Underwood told us afterwards. Marcus Damas, 22 points, 7 assists. Illinois up 10 within the first 8 minutes, Derek. Illinois up 20 within the first 12 or 13 minutes. This one was never in doubt. Illinois fans needed something like that. Illinois fans needed to get back to the Sweet 16. And while Brad Underwood won't say it's a monkey off his back, it is. And it is for this program, Derek. They get a good draw. They get Morehead State. They get the upset of Duquesne beating BYU, and they take full advantage of it, looking like one of the country's best programs. Illinois is back in the Sweet 16 for the first time in 19 years, Derek.
Enjoy the celebration. It's well-deserved. That was a therapeutic moment for the program. Brad won't maybe mention it for himself, but I have to imagine that had to feel extra special for him and for Tyler and for the staff. A lot of pressure put on him and to Illinois basketball for 19 years. And I think Brad, whether he wants to accept it or not, some of that pressure around the program was mounting from previous regimes, previous tenures. Bruce Weber, the second half and on, post-2005, John Gross, and obviously the early exits that Brad Underwood's had in recent seasons. So to finally break through, like you said, to take advantage of number one, which was their own doing, putting themselves in a position to get a 3 seed. Like, they took advantage of going to the Big Ten tournament, getting those wins, getting up a seed line into the 3 line, and then having an upset that, look, they could have beat the brakes off of BYU too, but this was beating a 14 and beating an 11 to get to a Sweet 16. It wouldn't have mattered who you played, just the release, the celebration, to finally break that streak, the first Sweet 16 in 19 years. I ran the numbers before the game. There had been 84 programs that had gone to the Sweet 16 between 2006 and last year, essentially, the drought that Illinois was in. There had been 84 that had hit that mark, so it was long overdue. Illinois is a freight train offensively. They're now, Ken Palm updated, the number 1 offense in the country. And Duquesne, who wanted to keep this game in the 60s, barely did that in the first half, like barely kept them in that range. So just a stellar all-around performance. They brought it defensively. They just overmatched a Duquesne team that's coming in with momentum, with confidence. And the Dukes didn't really even want to be there after maybe 15 minutes in this one. They looked shell-shocked, and they got blown off the floor, and Illinois is partying all the way to Boston.
Yeah, we appreciate the more than 300 people already here within the first couple of minutes. Hit that like button, subscribe to us on the YouTube channel while you're here. We appreciate you guys. We will talk about what I think is going to be a fascinating matchup, a contrast of styles against Iowa State in the Sweet 16 as they take care of business. More of a struggle for them, but pulled away from Washington State, the 7 seed, with Hilton West here before. Iowa State travels really, really well. And then the potential Elite 8 game against UConn as well. And just how dangerous are these Illini right now, Derek? But the one thing we talked about over the postseason run so far was if they just got off to a better start. And that was really important to them. Talking with people in the program, some of the coaches afterwards, getting off to a good start and not letting Duquesne get any confidence. Illinois won this game within the first 8 minutes. It was clear that pushing the ball in transition, defensive bite from the start against a not very good offensive team. Like, you stifled them, you got out in transition, and they just had no answer for Terrence Shannon or Marcus Damas. And when Coleman Hawkins makes 3 straight threes, you're picking your poison. You're leaving Damas one-on-one, Shannon in transition, and Hawkins hitting threes. There's hardly anybody in the country that has an answer for that, Derek, but especially a team like Duquesne. Like, you just imposed your will and crippled theirs from the start, and that's what you want to see. That's the kind of dominance and just assertiveness you want to see from a team in the NCAA tournament against an opponent that's not as good as them, but against any opponent. And I think that's something they can carry with them going into Boston, because if they do that to Iowa State, can Iowa State keep up with them? But that was important to see, was to see this team come out with fire in its belly.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was a complete performance because they played a full 40 minutes. and they were hitting Duquesne from all angles. The fact that they were getting out in transition, they were hitting threes, particularly Coleman Hawkins. They were getting on the offensive glass, and they're playing defense. I mean, we worried about turnovers. I thought that was one of the few avenues that Duquesne had to pulling this upset was if they turned Illinois over maybe 15 times. Illinois was actually turning Duquesne over, which is something they don't do to people. But because of the just stout on-ball defense, because they had some grit about them, toughness on the ball in terms of their defense, and it was just something where Duquesne was overwhelmed because Illinois was just dialed in. They had their physicality and the athleticism as far as the advantage there. So it was really impressive. This team, you can tell how much fun they're having out there when they're just having it all working. You got a number of guys stepping up continually. I mean, Dane to continue to play well. Coleman rose to the occasion. Quincy gave you a little bit more tonight in terms of a punch. Luke Goody can still be a three-ball maker off the bench. So
I thought Justin Harmon guarded tonight. Like Justin Harmon had some good moments, not offensively, but defensively. So getting him and Guerrier going a little bit, maybe feeling a little bit better, I thought was important, just the little parts of that game.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think it's really important. And yes, that was kind of the narrative going into the Morehead State game, which Illinois didn't start fast. But it was kind of like, all right, this dynamic can go one of two ways. Either Illinois, who has the expectations on their plate, they're expected to win. They have the higher seed. If they're playing from behind, maybe they get tight early. If they're trailing, the underdog kind of gets that confidence. It can flip the other way, though. If Illinois starts like they did tonight, it really just dejected Duquesne. Their crowd couldn't get in it, and then there was probably some internal questioning of like, what did we get ourselves into? So I think that obviously inspired Illinois, and I love the grit and the nastiness and the intensity, because you're going to need that against Iowa State, one of the toughest teams out there in the country, great defensive team, and then beyond. So this was something that as far as momentum, you hope they continue to ride the wave, but they deserve to be celebrated for that tonight.
Listen, I don't know if I have much more to break down about this game, Derek, because pardon my French, that was just an ass whooping. It was just a pure butt kicking. And that's why it's nice to get a little bit of a break with BYU, beating or losing to Duquesne. You take advantage of it. So kudos to this team for doing it. What did you make of the response of the players of making the Sweet 16? Because I asked Brad about it, and he said, hey, this is more about for the fans. It's ridiculous that this program is not made one in 19 years. Coleman was kind of saying, yeah, I want to be so happy right now, but the job's not done. And I figured that would be the response because this team shouldn't wear 18 years of a drought. But what happened against Loyola, what happened the last 2 years, there was pressure on Brad to obviously get through here, but for these players, they think they're special. They think they can get to an Elite Eight. They think they can get to a Final Four and win a national championship. But anything from the locker room stick out for you?
No, it's that. I think it's a consistent mindset, which I like, is that they're only focused on this group. It's about what this group can accomplish. It's about this team living up to its potential, which comes with pressure in itself because you are in win and go home mode. You want to make sure that you don't leave potential out there that's unrealized, because this team, with their offensive firepower, with a star like Terrence, with the depth of talent that they have, they should go far, and you have to show up and bring it, and you got to be able to get it done. But they are not carrying. They're happy for the fans. I mean, they talked about that. They're happy for the fans to celebrate. They're happy for Brad to help Brad break through and get to that Sweet 16, but they don't need to carry it, and they're not looking at it as a team that's carrying years and years and years of weight because they weren't part of that. It's more about them fulfilling what they set out to accomplish, which was to win the Big Ten. They didn't do it in the regular season. Came close, but didn't get there. Big Ten tournament, which they did, and then to go to a Final Four and obviously have a chance to win it all. So I like that Coleman wasn't entirely just satisfied with it. And you want those guys, because these moments are worthy of cherishing and appreciating it, at the time. And I'm sure that they will celebrate at least tonight to an extent, but to not get satisfied with it, to want more, to know that there's more out there for this team. I think that's important, and that's what you want a leader in the locker room to express, and because that can really permeate through and set in with other guys. And I think Coleman probably recognizes, maybe whether he's thinking about it or not, one of the thoughts, and we talked about it before, that maybe in 21 they got a little too too comfortable after winning the Big Ten tournament. Maybe they exhaled a little bit too much then before going back into the tournament. So now this is one of those breaking points of you get out of here. There's a little bit of break in the action. Don't let your guard down. Don't get too complacent with it. So again, they should celebrate. They should put the goggles on and the squirt guns and all that and enjoy that. But also they can accomplish a lot more. And I think that they're still hungry for it.
Yeah, I chased down, just to tease a column I'm working on tonight. The guy I wanted to chase down was Chester Frazier, because I just felt like this was the guy who could tell the story, because Chester was in my class at the University of Illinois. And I chose University of Illinois because I wanted to cover big time sports in a journalism program. Like Mizzou had a better journalism program, Northwestern, but I was like, I want to cover something like D, Darren, and Luther. And I just figured they're going to make Sweet 16s a lot, Derek, because when I was growing up, Bill Self was making Sweet 16s. Lon Kruger, I believe, got to one. And Illinois was just continually getting there with Bruce Weber and all these guys. And then it didn't happen for 19 years. And I've covered the program for most of that time. And Chester has been a part of that too. He talked about in 2009, he thought they had the team to do it, and then he broke his hand. In 2006, they thought they had a really good team, but they ran into a buzzsaw in Brandon Roy in Washington. 2011, they thought they had the talent, but they ended up being too young with Jeremy Richmond and Myers Leonard, with some of those veterans like Mike Tisdale, Mike Davis, and Dimitri McCamey. But then he goes to Kansas State, comes back here, and last year they were really young. He thought the Kofi Trent team had a chance to do it, but ran into a great Houston team. But for him to be a part of it, I think is really cool. But it's just none of us thought it would take this long, Derek. And the fact that it's this team, like, what do you think this means for the program to just get over that hump once and for all?
It's important. As I'm going through that list and to see that over the last 18 years, you've got a squad like Michigan State who's been there 9 times to the Sweet 16. Wisconsin and Michigan have done it like 7 times, and Purdue's been there a number of times. Matt Painters has that under his belt, and I know that we get caught a lot of times in terms of appeal and profile of a program to apply to recruiting. I'd say that we shouldn't, because I think that's really important as you try to covet people in the portal or people in the high school ranks, because you want to be able to sell that you can play at the highest stage. And yes, NIL money is still going to matter. Yes, regular season success is still going to matter. NBA draft stocks are still going to matter. But there are people who want to play for championships. And if Illinois is up against somebody that's been to a Final Four, has been deep in a tournament run, and on the other side, someone could turn around and say, yeah, but you go to Illinois, you're not going to get out of the first weekend because they haven't in forever. That was a fair arrow to throw at the Illini here recently. So to get that off your back is important. But I think also just to capitalize on the window that you're in, because you need – I'm not saying this program's going to run dry on talent. They're not going to find the next – I don't know if it's going to be another Terrence Shannon Jr., because that guy, I know that this
– We'll talk about that here in a second, yeah.
I was going to say we're going to have that. But, not to doubt Brad and his ability to get another All-American level player, but you never know. You never know how some of these things work. And when you have that collection of talent or those high-end stars like they've had, you've got to turn that into some real milestone success, some other banners up there. And this team has a chance to do that, where others left that out there, and a lot of wonder about what could have been, what should have been. And not that the job's done again. It's not here, but it does extend kind of that dream for the fan base over the next handful of days. Could we go to a Final Four, and to hear your name talked about in these tournament shows and whatnot, if Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley even know who's on your team. Anyways.
But like, you get those people talking about you, right? Like there's, even though you might enjoy us who talk about it more, know more about the team, like to have Charles Barkley talk about your team, to have Seth Davis talk about your team, like all these guys nationally talk about your team. That's a lot of fun, and that's good for the program's PR. Obviously, there's going to be some scrutiny with Terrence Shannon more as it goes along, and Illinois understands that. And you're going to get some of that stuff coming over the next week, but you get to bask in this. You get to bask in the possibilities of, could this team be up there with 2005 and 1989 making a Final Four? Could this team get to an Elite Eight, like Frank Williams in the Illini, right? Like, can they do those things and just celebrate your program and bask in it for another week? I think is a lot of fun and something this program needs and deserves. So I think it's going to be big for them in that regard. One of the reasons they're here, and a big reason they're here, is Terrence Shannon is on the floor, and Terrence Shannon is playing better than any player in the country right now. 158 points in 5 postseason games. You think this guy wants it, Derek? You think this guy is locked in about what his legacy will be on the basketball court? Obviously, with everything going around this season with him as well. I asked Deion Thomas today, is he having the best season of all time? Maybe Joey asked, but we were talking with Deion, and he said, "Oh yeah, by far." And so like all of these, like I now that he gets to a Sweet 16, the way he's playing, Derek, the way he's dominating in transition, and the way he's just asserted himself on the basketball court, like I think he's kind of locked that up. Like this is the single most dominant season we'll probably ever see from an Illini.
Yeah, it's fair. It's hard to argue against when you look at the scoring streak, 7 games of 30-plus points, and to get this team to the Sweet 16 finally. And defensively, what he's doing at that end of the floor, consistently impacting the game on defense, is something that I would assume who's in the conversation as far as picking and choosing which season was more prolific and special. I still think with Io, you have the clutch shots, you have the clutch moments, you have the facilitating, so that you could have an argument. And also,
Sure.
like I think, not that anyone's forgetting it, but it is a year 5 Terrence Shannon versus a year 3 Io DeSumo. So, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Terrence. I think he's been absolutely special, deserves to be a first-round pick, proving that it's going to be hard to not take him in the lottery if the legal stuff subsides and if it works out in his favor. But there's no one I'd want at this very moment more on my team in the tournament than Terrence Shannon. So I do think it's been on paper
Of any team, right?
Yeah,
of
right.
any team in the
I know
country.
Edie's still a one of one, but I think Terrence is a one of one in college basketball. There's no one that explosive right now in transition. You saw the way that they were hitting Duquesne with quick hitters, and then the way he's shooting from 3 too. So unbelievable.
Yeah, he's been on an absolute tear. Marcus Damask has had a hell of a week here. Derek follows up a triple-double with 22 points, 7 assists, and 2 steals. I thought he was really good defensively. Terrence had 2 steals. If we want to nitpick with Terrence, he had 5 turnovers tonight, but unbelievable from him. And then Coleman hitting those couple threes. But let's focus, Derek, on going to Boston, going to the Sweet 16, and Illinois will take on number 2 seed Iowa State, the number 1 offensive efficiency in the country right now, before UConn plays tomorrow against the number 2 defensive efficiency in the country. Washington State had a really good start tonight. I thought with their length that maybe they could hang around, and they were kind of figuring out, with the really aggressive defense that Iowa State has, you have some opportunities if you can handle the pressure, swing the ball around and find the open man, but it just wears on you. This defense is so aggressive at Iowa State, the ball pressure, the traps that they do, that it just wears on you for 40 minutes, and Washington State just didn't have the firepower to overcome it. What a contrast of styles, Derek. So I know you got to see a little bit of Iowa State because you were doing the pregame for WCIA, but this is a really fun contrast of styles, 2 great teams and 2 great fan bases.
Yeah, absolutely to all of that. And it's a supercharged Duquesne as far as defensively. They're far more athletic. They've got more just physicality about them, so they're going to be more imposing. Duquesne never was able to settle in and bother Illinois with their defense. And I wondered why they went with the matchup that they did. Was it DeMichael that was on Shannon, who just had
no
for
that kid. Felt
no
bad
chance. That's a freshman, 6'4", 185, just overwhelmed. So you're not going to see that when you square up against Iowa State. You're going to see a lot better athleticism. They're number 2 in the country in defense for a reason. They're even higher up the rack in terms of the turnover rate that they pose. So it will challenge Illinois' ball handling. It will challenge Illinois to run their stuff, to be comfortable, to not be sped up, to not get punked as far as the glass and whatnot. They've got good guard play. Taman Lipsey, Big 12 first teamer at point guard who can distribute, can also score. Curtis Jones can score it off the bench as well. And Momcilovic. I'm probably butchering his name, but I think the freshman 6'8" shooter can make some plays too. So they're not known for being a super pretty offensive team. And look, it was ugly early for them trying to gain some traction with their offense. But when you see a team punk a Houston like they did in the Big 12 tournament title game, that gets your attention. And we know what Houston, what their makeup is, what their athleticism and toughness is. So this will be a very tough battle. I think if Illinois can get enough stops, I would lean and say, can Iowa State score with Illinois, assuming that they don't just completely shut down Illinois' offense. I'd be surprised if they did. But it will be a tough game. And on the note of things that haven't happened in a while, actually, I was looking through the record book. Has Illinois ever beaten a team that's been a better seed than them in the tournament? I don't think they have. Since 1979, when the seeding came out, I don't think Illinois has ever beaten a team that's been seeded better than them. I'll have to run through this again, but that would be another kind of first. This isn't a first since, this would be a first ever. Not saying they can't do it, because they obviously can, but
it kind of goes back to my conversation with Chester. We were talking about the Virginia Tech game. And being up 20, they were the lower seed. They were 11 that year against the 6, up 20 at halftime, and ended up losing that game. And I think they would have gotten a double-digit seed in the second round that year. So it just shows you, like, that's an amazing stat. So go through that again.
Bootzilla, 2004, 5 seed Illinois beat 4 seed Cincinnati.
Okay, but it hasn't happened often, man. Hasn't happened often. So, you got another thing you can check off your list there. So, that was the last one.
2011 to a 9 beat an 8 in UNLV. So it's happened. It just hasn't happened often.
Not often. But like it's going to be a fascinating matchup. I think if you can get out and run, that's going to be the key. Get stops, get out and run. Iowa State is going to be better at stopping that than Duquesne, but they only had 7 turnovers tonight. I thought that was really good. Iowa State's defense is far better, far more imposing. It's going to bother. I saw somebody say Marcus Damask and Ty Rogers. Yeah, that's going to be big. Coleman Hawkins, I think, is going to be really important because he can initiate some offense and maybe have a little bit more freedom with a big guy covering him. But if they can get out and run, Derek, that's going to be the most important thing. So I think it starts with good defense, because Iowa State's offense, it doesn't scare me a lot. They got a couple good guards. They play so hard. You're going to have to clean up on the glass tonight again on the offensive glass, or you let Duquesne get 13 offensive rebounds. Can't do that against Iowa State. But man, if Illinois can get into a track meet, I don't know if Iowa State can keep up with it. So that's going to be the most important thing, but it's going to be a great challenge. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm eager to see what the Vegas line here is. I with the way Illinois is playing, but Iowa State's just went through the Big 12 tournament. I think this could be close to a pick 'em, or maybe Illinois slightly favored in this one with the way they're playing, but I'll be interested to see that.
Ken Palm right now, Iowa State by 1. So we'll see.
Okay. That's probably what Vegas will do.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is action on Illinois that swings that through the line of even, and we'll see where it lands. But yeah, that's what the analytics are saying right now. But looking just kind of surface level at Iowa State, I've seen them a little bit, but not a ton. We'll obviously look forward to diving in more. But a team that does possession length defensively, they want to slow you down. They want to make you grind through everything. Not get out, obviously, in transition. So that's going to be important. I fully agree with you. I think part of Illinois' fast start was getting those stops that allowed you to run. Because we saw Terrence early on, he missed that layup early. He had a turnover or 2. But getting him in the open court, you just can't guard that. You can't guard. He's going to put fouls on you. He's going to score, maybe both. So I think that's really important against Iowa State. Also, they want you to shoot threes. They want to take away the lane. It's similar to Nebraska, although, of course, they're a better defensive team than Nebraska. But we saw that kind of in the Big Ten tournament, especially in the first half. Thought Illinois settled a little too much from 3. They're going to try to encourage you to kick it out and shoot from the outside, not be able to get into the lane. We'll see if Terrence can be that downhill presence that opens things up and kind of gives you that balance. You don't want to settle too much against this type of team, but it's going to be a fascinating contrast of strengths. Both are elite at what they do.
Yeah, when you get in the half court and run through Marcus, I imagine they're going to blitz him. And that means Coleman Hawkins, Quincy Guerrier, Luke Goody, those guys need to shoot it well. We didn't mention Dane Danger, 4 for 4, 8 points, 5 rebounds. He's 13 for 13 in these first 2 NCAA tournament games. And a lot of it, Derek, it's not throw the ball into Dane Danger and let him post up. It's mostly just dump offs by Terrence, and Terrence has been really good at assisting on those and stuff in the fast core and the fast break. He's getting easy buckets, and again, I think it's all about activity. They didn't want to run post ups with Danger, with Marcus Damas doing what he's doing, but just in that dunker spot, he's been absolutely dominant.
No doubt. Yeah, the transition is impressive. It shows that his conditioning's gotten better, his mobility has ticked up. That was one thing in watching. I remember back to them in Spain. It's like he made an end-to-end play. I'm like, oh, this is a different version of Dane Danger. We, of course, for months through the regular season didn't see it in terms of him being on the court extended minutes or making the motor rev up like that. But now he really is being able to show everything he's got. And so out in transition as a big man at that size is impressive. And yeah, the dunker spot is allowing you still to kind of have that open space for Terrence to drive downhill or Marcus to make a play. And I give Terrence a lot of credit for just seeing that, drawing the defender, the big, dumping it off. That's a growth spot for him as far as his offense. And if he can do that, in addition to getting his own points, getting to the free throw line, that makes him all the more difficult to stop. But yeah, having that guy waiting on the baseline who's going to go up with power like Dane, that's a great thing to have.
All right, let's get some of your questions. If you want to send those super chats, we always appreciate you guys doing those. But we'll take some of your questions here before we get out of here and start writing before an early morning and departure tomorrow. So we get home for a few, 48 hours, hopefully, and spend with our families before another, hopefully, long week in Boston. But
our wives are really excited about Illinois winning, by the way.
I think they're happy for everybody out there, but it's been a lot of time away from the family, so looking forward for a few days with them here. Forrest Gump, how much credit does Tyler Underwood get for this #1 offense? Good timing, Derek, because you wrote about it today.
I did write about it. Check out the story on the site. I think he deserves a good amount of credit. He's brought ideas to the table in terms of, I think, NBA influence as far as matchup seeking, studying some of the NBA teams like Oklahoma City and the Sacramento Kings for some 5-out stuff with Coleman. I don't want to give it all away, so you definitely want to check out that on the site. But yeah, essentially being their offensive coordinator. I'm sure a lot of people have noticed it during games. He's up out of his chair, calling plays, or just being very vocal. A lot of communication with Marcus. Of course, Marcus is pretty much essentially running point guard for you. So Brad's put a lot of trust in him. There's reasons he's sitting right next to Brad in games with the dialogue back and forth. There's trust there, and Tyler's has a good offensive mind. He's commanded respect in the locker room, and I think he's not the sole reason for what's happened. Number one, you got to have talent, obviously. There's been collective idea sharing and getting to this point, but Tyler is someone that has helped Illinois on the offensive end, and to be the OC essentially for the #1 offense of the country, that says a lot.
Yeah, and I'll say this: like I get it when you have a son that's hired, right? The nepotism stuff. Tyler's earned his due here. Like he makes a good impact on the staff. He's part of a staff that is working well together, and I think he's a really bright basketball mind. So I get it. I get the criticism of all of that, but he's made a positive impact on this program. TCR Brad, what's up, Brad? Finally, I can stop tweeting Sweet 16 or bust every year. Arguably the most validating win of the Underwood era. Thanks for the 16-16 super chat there, Brad. Is this the most validating win of the Underwood era?
I mean,
I think the Ohio State Big Ten tournament win for me, winning the Big Ten tournament title.
I agree. The blowout took away some of the drama of the game. Not that you needed it, but yes,
I think people were happy there wasn't drama.
Yeah, exactly. It means a lot, but I think I asked you guys, does it matter that Illinois didn't beat maybe some kind of impressive foe to get to this point? It's more about the streak breaking, which is a big deal. But yeah, I think that the 21 was more of a statement And I think that there were breakthroughs leading up to this that really unlocked this for Brad. So it's a huge win, and hopefully we got more to cover though. I hope that they're adding to this.
I'll say this: I think it's the most validating season overall for him. Just when you think about the totality, I know 20 was a breakthrough. I wish we could have seen that team in the NCAA tournament. I think that team could have made a Sweet 16. Andres Feliz and a young guy, I would assume, in the NCAA tournament. I would have loved to have seen that. Kofi Coburn is a freshman, right? That team was just playing really well at the end of the season. Probably would have been a 4 seed. So I think they had the chance to do it. 21 obviously was a really validating year, but then you ended it the way you did. And for this to be another version, like to prolong this run that Brad Underwood has had, to win the Big Ten tournament title, to be a top 10 team, to get to the Sweet 16. I think in totality, this for Brad Underwood, given everything this team has been through, everything the program has gone through over the last several years, I think this could be the most validating season potentially.
I can see that for sure. And there's going to be an argument to be made that it's Brad's best coaching job, especially when you
Correct.
When you include the putting the pieces together in the offseason. I think that it's probably going to be hard to argue against that, especially if they take another step forward, get to an Elite Eight and whatnot. So, I definitely think that that's fair. But there's no doubt, 2020, 21 really stamping Illinois on the national map to get a 1 seed and all of that, to build on what was a breakthrough season the year before.
Those are the two. Right.
Yeah, and the great thing is we can show the type of window that Illinois is in, the fact that we can bring up different seasons and say, hey, actually look at this. That shows how good it's been. But the Sweet 16 was needed to get that off, and this season is the one that did it.
What a March it's been for Illinois. A Big Ten tournament title in the Sweet 16. Rick, $20 super chat. Appreciate you, Rick. First off, Dane changes the game. Secondly, what was going on between Brad and Hawk at the 9-minute mark in the second half when he came out? Yeah, I think Joey was more locked in on that one than I was, but Coleman was upset about something. Brad got after him about something, and Coleman gave him something back, and then Brad kind of settled him down outside the huddle. So I don't know if you had any more insight, but it's not uncommon for Brad and Coleman, to be honest with you.
No, I was talking to another reporter who asked if I saw what happened, and it sounds like Brad was upset with Coleman arguing with the ref when they were up 30. Like I think maybe swatted down at the ball, wanted a jump ball call, got called for a reach in, and was going after a referee or just pleading his case. And Brad was essentially like, we're up 30. This is not necessary. So I think there was a little bit of back and forth as far as that goes. That was the way it was relayed to me. I didn't personally. We were sitting on the other side of the court, so I didn't hear any of the exchange. But Brad and Coleman have their moments, but there's a lot of respect there, obviously.
Yes, yeah, they respect the hell out of each other. They are different personalities, but they respect the heck out of each other. All right, let's get to a few more of these before we get out of here. Sleaze dog. Hey, Sleaze, if Brad Underwood gets to a Final Four, is he better than Lou Henson? Let's not go there yet. Lou got to Elite Eight, Final Four. Brad's got to get to there. But I think if you do that, Derek, you're starting to talk about Brad Underwood's tenure is going to be up there with Lou Henson, who is the most successful coach in Illinois history. Now, you could argue Bill Self is the best coach Illinois has ever had, but he's only here for 3 years. Brad is getting into that realm. If you can make a run and then you make another run after that, you win more Big Ten titles like that. That's what we're talking about, where you're in that Lou tier. Like Lou is by himself in that tier. Lon Kruger is a great coach. Bruce Weber is a great coach. Bill Self was here 3 years, but Lou is kind of that Illini guy who was here for 2 decades. Brad could be getting into that realm.
Yeah, and it is hard to compare with the longevity that Lou had and
Correct.
How he built it up. And then, of course, when you have, like you said, a Final Four and then an Elite Eight. But it's fair to think about the sustainability that Illinois has achieved under Brad recently. And if they do break through and get to that Final Four, how he'd be remembered. And if he then builds on it with another 5-year window or whatever it looks like, he is going to be, if he gets to a Final Four, he'll be thought of as obviously one of the best that Illinois had. And Bill was more kind of just totality of his career and then having it at Illinois and then obviously the what if. But it is hard to judge still.
Yeah.
And obviously until he gets there at the Final Four, it's
Yeah.
a conversation.
Yeah, he's only been here 7 years. He's building a Lou-like resume in the early going, but Lou was here, 13, 15 more years than him. Fly Illini fly. Hey, y'all, what's going on with those rituals, I guess I can call it, after answering questions in the press conference? Kind of funny. It's pushing the chairs in. Coleman started it, and our guy who runs a great Twitter account, follow him at Hoop Informatics. Some really good stuff there. He started noticing that Illinois players were pushing in their chairs and crediting Coleman for great technique, criticizing the others, critiquing the others for their technique. Yesterday, all three of them that were at the press conference bowed and then pushed their chair in with two hands. They're having fun with it. Coleman's very online. All these players are, right? We're all very online, and they're having some fun with it. I think it just talks to the looseness of this team, and they're having fun, Derek.
Yeah, I don't know. You were there for the podium tonight, but Marcus and Coleman were talking about what they were going to do on the walk over when they passed by us before open locker room. So, yeah, they're having fun. They know that people are watching now. So, it just shows that they're connected and they're enjoying the ride, which they should be.
Yep. Ryan, what's the one category the Illini need to win in order to beat ISU other than points, obviously? What do you think, Derek?
That's a good question. I think
can you stay under 12 turnovers?
That's interesting for sure. Yeah, that's going to be huge. Of course, Illinois doesn't turn people over, so you could still, maybe have.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Free throws.
Yeah.
I think Illinois would really like a tight whistle against Iowa State because that would favor them. Get Iowa State in foul trouble. Iowa State, if they get handsy, which is the term Illinois likes to use, then you can get to the free throw line, get easy points, and maybe get out in transition, all those things. So I think you'd like the officials to have a tight whistle.
I think it's a good point. Points in the paint is probably another one. When you know that Iowa State wants to make you shoot threes, can you still get Terrence downhill? Can you still get Dane around the rim? Can you make Marcus, if they're going to let him play one-on-one in booty ball, I'm not sure that they will. And then Iowa State's not a great three-point shooting team. So if they're able to cut off driving lanes and not allow them to get to the basket, I think that's something too. And I think offensive rebounding, because Iowa State, not the most pretty offense as far as production and shot making. They're going to need the offensive glass. And, of course, we know Illinois, part of the formula of getting to the most efficient offense in the country is having the second chance opportunities, and what they were doing tonight and what they've done all season. So if they win second chance points, offensive rebounds, I think that's another part of the formula to get in a win too.
All right, Derek, any final thoughts before we get out of here and wrap up a good week in Omaha and prepare for a week in Boston?
Just enjoyed it, man. You don't take it for granted covering NCAA tournament. And just thinking in my mind, we've been talking on podcasts how I wanted Boston, and we all have. I know that. And it's going to be fun. I know it's one of your favorite cities. I've been there before. I'm really, really looking forward to it. We appreciate everybody that supports us. This allows us to do this. Shout out again to the family, because you got to give that for sure. But we're working hard. Joey too. Joey's been doing great work. So just thankful for doing this, and look forward to another ride.
Yeah, I kept telling Derek we're going to cover big time games, and here we go, off to a Sweet 16, maybe an Elite 8. Which, boy, if Illinois gets through Iowa State and then gets to play UConn, Derek, I mean, house money for Illinois at that point, going up against the defending champion and what looks like a juggernaut. Boy, that's when you can start talking about just one of the best teams ever in Illinois history. I don't know if anybody can touch that 05 team. I know the 89 Flying Illini as well, but you're talking about just elite company if you can do that. But that's big time stage. So hopefully we can cover a couple games in Boston. But it is one of my favorite cities, man. It's a small city, but good enough to walk around. You get to see all the history there, and I can't wait to get my red brick ale from Sam Adams. You can only get it on the Freedom Trail. So hopefully we can get a warm day in there somewhere. With this second winter that we got going on right now in Omaha. But it's going to be a fun trip out in Boston. I want to echo Derek's comments. One, thanks to our families for dealing with this. It is a grind doing this, but man, we enjoy it. It's a dream to cover games like this and give you guys good content. So appreciate all your support for allowing us. These aren't cheap trips, but your guys' support through watching on YouTube, the super chats we appreciate, most importantly being VIP members at Illini Inquirer. It helps us cover these teams the way that we do. So thank you all. Enjoy the night. Enjoy the week as Illinois is heading to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2005. Give us a like on the YouTube channel if you guys are here. More than 700 people watching tonight, almost till midnight here Central Time. Appreciate all you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, and we'll have plenty more content at IlliniInquirer.com. Everybody, have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.